Really excited for this conversation with Graham Pansing Brooks, co-founder and CEO of Seachange. In this episode, we're talking about what purpose means for business, in what ways it helps to drive the performance of business, how to get a read on where your organization is at relative to purpose, and then super crisp, clear actions that you can take to advance your own organization along the spectrum of purpose-driven and gain some of those benefits that Graham is going to lay out for us. So I'm excited to get started. So the reason I'm excited about this conversation is because it is just so aligned with what I'm aiming for with Scrappy, really trying to help the world transition to a model of business that is driven by purpose. And I know this is a huge focus for you, a huge focus for Seachange. So, it's absolutely part of the journey. I want to learn what you have. I want to, the audience that I've kind of gathered around this, I want to share what you have with them and, learn from either what you have to offer, mistakes that you've seen, other things, because you've been working with organizations for a while now, helping them to operate around purpose. So, I kind of just want to know from you, your tagline, or one of the taglines that you have under Seachange, is organizations that want to thrive financially while making a positive impact. Can you just sort of explain at the top here, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, absolutely. And Colt, thanks again. Really excited for this conversation as well. I know the work that y'all are doing at Scrappy is rooted in purpose orientation as well. And so, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while.
Right on, man.
And so, to kind of launch in there, the underlying premise here is that organizations that really prioritize purpose and want to embed purpose in what they're doing, the data, the research, the context shows that those organizations tend to outperform their peers financially. And so, it's not necessarily a conversation point of, we're doing well as an organization, and so we want to be giving. How do we start shifting that conversation to a point where those two are working harmoniously together? That the flywheel starts spinning to say, purpose orientation can actually be a feeder of our business and how we're performing as an organization. And thereby, when we can do better, we can give more. And so it's that flywheel that really starts spinning to say, these two things are not, they're not disjointed. They actually can work very, very deeply and harmoniously together.
I totally dig that. Is there a reason why that focus in terms of business and how they approach what they're doing has it become more important today than it has been in the past? Is that kind of what you're seeing? And if so, why?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that overall, there's been a really heightened focus on what it is that businesses do in general. There's a data point out there that says that right now it's something like 80% of the time that businesses are mentioned in social media, in movies and television, it has a negative connotation. And so I think that a big premise around this is trying to reclaim capitalism, trying to reclaim what business stands for. And that there is the cronyism, there is the corruption, there are really negative components and forces within capitalism, but that doesn't need to be the standard, and that doesn't need to be how the broad brush is being painted. And so I think that there's a big effort for business in general to be sort of reframing and recasting how business is being viewed in general. But also I think that it's this next generation of the workforce. There's a huge priority with this upcoming generation to say, we want fulfillment in the workplace. We want to know what our purpose is. We want to know that what we're doing and what we're contributing is actually making a tangible impact. It's no longer just the 9 to 5, come in, check out. Yeah. And so, there will always be folks that fill that gap and that will want that. But I think that we're talking sort of more in the generalized, the majority of this workforce is really, really prioritizing purpose. So I think it's really those two pieces together. It's sort of this attempt for business to sort of reframe or reclaim, what it is that they stand for, while also trying to attract this next generation of the workforce.
So I really appreciate that. And what you said at the beginning there is that this is becoming, some of the major metrics for business performance are becoming intrinsically tied to this idea of purpose. One of the things that I've seen sort of happening for a long time in the dialogue about purpose is that ideas about environmental sustainability, diversity, inclusion, these types of things, the ESG conversation, and the purpose conversation. There's a lot of overlap there. I would love to get your perspective on sort of what is the Venn diagram looking like for the conversation under the heading of purpose and the conversation under the heading of ESG. Same thing, different thing. What's the overlap? What's the difference?
Yeah, that's a great question. In my mind, I think that purpose. I view purpose as being a really pretty broad umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
Of there are, as you know, there are a million and one ways to generate purpose.
Oh yeah,
Um, and
yes.
so it I think that that's been one of the challenging conversation points for businesses when you say, okay, well, let's be more purpose oriented, or let's
Mm-hmm.
be more purpose driven as a business. The question then is, okay, well, what does that mean? How do we do that?
Yeah,
Because there
totally.
are so many different paths to purpose that exist. And so for me, I think it's the umbrella of purpose. There's so many different categories, so many different frameworks, movements out there. We talk about conscious capitalism, or
Yeah,
1% for the planet, or certified B corporations. There are frameworks and movements that are out there that help align and help organizations identify, what is the path that I want to take.
yeah,
And then under that, comes all these separate conversations then about, okay, well, when we decided we want to be purpose driven, where does the rubber meet the road? And so
totally.
then that's where I think you get into these conversations about ESG and
Yes,
DEI. And
yes.
there's it's sort of a almost the opposite of pick your own poison, right? Like it's sort of the pick your own purpose.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and really saying, okay, well, this is how we want to double down. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
really up to the business to decide, how do we want to engage? Is it through an ESG lens? Is it
Mm-hmm.
through DEI, inclusivity, justice lens? Is it through an environmental stewardship lens? There's so many different ways that organizations can manifest purpose. And then additionally within that, there's so many frameworks and movements and networks out there that really are intended to help align organizations, create the community and the networks of organizations to be able to share like-minded business leaders and create sort of that community of like-minded organizations.
Yeah,
So to me, I think I see purpose as being sort of that broad umbrella of saying, we want to stand for something more than profit. Okay,
yeah.
great. Now what? And then I think you start really finding what resonates with you, what resonates with your team, and how do we
Mm-hmm.
want to align there. I mean, I'd be curious too to know, Colt, what you've seen within that conversation too.
I mean, it's really been interesting when I think about purpose. The way that I've been defining it is, it's like it sets your north star as an organization. It's the
Yeah,
definition of the impact that you seek to make upon the world, right? So it's the visionary statement. That's purpose, and I have definitely gotten into some conversations where you could tell that some people really have this sense of purpose being um, like embedded in the ideas of sustainability, environmental stewardship, and that type of thing. And what's been so fascinating is to kind of participate in, and then also be a fly on the wall for the debates that take place around this. There are definitely organizations that they support they support mass mining. That's what that corporation is there to do, and their purpose is to help businesses and ultimately individuals that need to extract resources from the earth in order to warm their homes, in order to drive their industry. Like, that's purpose for them. And there comes to this, like, well, that's an evil purpose. It's like, well, what you've done is you've sort of overlapped a personal value system, or a
hmm
cultural value system on top of a business's operation. So it's a very fascinating space to watch people sort of interplay values and purpose and how that plays in an organization. If you work for a mass mining organization, an extractive organization, and you come home and that organization is richly driven by purpose, when your family asks you what you do, you don't say, "Oh, I rape the earth." You
yeah,
you come
right.
home and you say, "Oh, I help people access rich minerals and elements that exist inside the earth, so that they can build things like Tesla cars, which are helping us move from being fossil fuel." I mean, it's like, paint the story, man. And that purpose
Yeah,
can really cover so much. And so here's what I want to ask you is, with it being really a pick your purpose. Well, I love the way you said that. Pick your purpose is sort of like there's so much variety to it. Is there some are there universal ways that purpose is measured that you can say, okay, you are a very purpose oriented organization or not? Or do you even think about it as purpose oriented? How do you get to a business leader and say doing well, not doing well? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the ways that we often try to work and help organizations is helping them really understand what their purpose is, right? Because there is certainly a what you do, but I
Yep.
think that tends to be um, there tends to be another level beyond that. And what we've really found, and I think what's really driving the market right now, is looking at your team. So what does your team connect to, right? Like
Yeah.
we do this type of work, but what is it? What is beyond that? What is it
Hmm.
that we as a team, as our colleagues care about? And so when you start to really kind of hone in that direction and say, okay, well, let's I think that that's also a decision from the business to say, well, we care about our people and we want to know what the values of our people are, and and then we try to fit our purpose around that. I think that for organizations that really are looking at, let's define purpose and let's create purpose based on our team and colleague engagement,
Yeah.
for those types of organizations, I think it really becomes a listening opportunity.
Yeah.
It's what do we really care about? How well are our values as a company resonating with
Hmm.
our team members? You can put data behind that. It's not
Sure you
just
can. Yeah.
engagement data. It's looking at the perceptions of alignment of purpose,
Totally. Yeah. I was
of
just thinking
values.
alignment. Yep.
Exactly. And so from there, I think that again, purpose in my mind is can be a sort of an always moving target, because as people come and go within the organization, values change,
Yes.
perceptions change,
Yes.
but but it's the role of the business to really be trying to get a deeper understanding of how as we are ebbing and flowing within our organization, are are we defining purpose for whatever our next generation and whatever our next iteration of this organization is going to be, because we
Yeah.
can't have stagnant organizations. We have to be thinking about innovation and growth, and we have to be adjusting to the times.
That's
And
so good. Yes.
yeah, so i think
Totally with you.
so I think as you're looking at, how do you define purpose or how do you measure purpose, a
Yep.
lot of times it comes back to people. It comes back
Right.
to how well are they engaged or perceiving or feeling the values of the organization.
Oh, and I'm stoked that you ended with that because as I think about alignment, I think some folks when they think about alignment, it's cool. Can everybody recite the purpose statement, right? And if
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
sort of as a consultancy, if you're going into an organization, be like, okay, everybody can totally recite it. This guy even did it in French. That was amazing. Like that's a degree of alignment because everybody can say the same thing. Then there's like, well, is it? Have you really operationalized it, or did you just get everybody to memorize it?
Right.
And then from that point, it's does it does it have meaning, personal
Hmm.
meaning to the people who are participating, right? So everybody knows it. That's one thing. Everybody's doing it. That's a second thing. And then the third is everybody's feeling it, right? Like, and
Exactly.
you're getting to that sort of esoteric, difficult to measure space. But have you sort of cracked that nut? Do you guys know how to like evaluate all three levels and then support businesses and getting to all three of those levels?
Yeah,
I'm not
I
trying
mean,
to get your secret sauce here.
no, no. No, yeah, I think that I think that that's sort of the crux of the conversation, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Is for so long these conversations around purpose have, purpose feels at times very mushy. Um,
Totally. Yes, yes.
right? And so how do you get back to a place where you are really understanding that, yes, this is landing with our team, it's being felt by the team, and
Yeah.
again, that's not something where you even just sort of cross the finish line and are able to say, let's celebrate and be done. I think that organizations that are out there that are some of the best purpose driven organizations are the first to say there's always more that we can do. In
Wow,
the
yeah.
same way that you and I are on a lifelong journey of personal development, our organizations need to be on a lifelong journey of corporate development, because they're
Wow.
going to ideally outlast us, right? And so again, we continually need to be trying to think through how does that purpose connect back down to our team members? And so,
Mm,
to your point, I like how you sort of listed that out. It's like, okay, yes, there is, we can all state it, right? It's plastered on the wall. It's,
right.
it's there. It's in the team handbook. So
Uh-huh.
we've got a purpose. All right. So, okay, now what? And I
Yes.
think that's really um, where we're trying to strive to get to is providing some clarity around, let's create some strategies. Let's get intentional. Let's get creative. Let's think through how we can find ways to connect that back. And I think that's what
Yeah.
organizations are really hungry for right now, because I think that most organizations out there have a mission statement or a value statement of some sort.
Sure.
They have pillars of giving that they contribute to.
Mm.
Um, but very few, I think, are taking the time and spending the resources, time, talent, treasure, enough to really find ways to be meaningfully connecting that back down to the day to day operations of your team members.
Yeah. I'm loving some of the themes that you're bringing into this conversation. I mean, certainly there's some start with the why
Yeah.
pieces
Yep.
here, and also it's a Sinek, Simon Sinek, a theme is the infinite game, where you're talking about the
Hmm.
importance of these organizations will be here after we're gone, and
Hmm.
the evolution that they'll have to go through in order to become, I guess, quote unquote, infinite organizations, being able to sustain themselves as things change and as purpose evolves, or how maybe this is a whole different conversation probably, but the difference between how purpose can maintain, and you have to evolve through different strategies, different service lines, different products, different solutions in order to be delivering your purpose well, consistently, and better, like throughout time. Or purpose evolves. That's, like I said, a completely different
Yeah.
conversation. But the thing that you ended on, which I really wanted to get to next, you said time, talent, and treasure. Love this. There's such a common mode of thinking that parses business into these like two worlds. A lot of leaders have this, not even on purpose, but it's become such a mode of our culture that you think of your cost centers and you
Yeah.
think of your revenue centers. And when you talk about applying time, talent, and treasure to purpose, I just heard cost center, cost center, cost center, right? Like, even though treasure was the only one that was there, but each of these is a consumption of a resource in an organization. I just want to ask you if that two columns sort of bookkeeping mentality is just irrelevant to this, or if it
Hmm.
is relevant, are we talking about a cost center? Are we talking about revenue generation? What's your take on how these things fit together?
Yeah. I think it's a really important question and an important thing for organizations to really be assessing, because
Mm,
I think you can really break it down into a variety of ways. Does purpose impact the bottom line? I think the short answer would be yes. Uh, but again, because of the lack of metrics at times that can directly relate back, it's hard to really measure. And how can you know that this charitable activity that we did, or this program that we've done within the organization, was the sole reason that retention went up,
sure.
or that
No.
we
Yeah.
saw an increase in our applicant pool. Um, but I will say, I think that at the bottom line, when we are in a place right now where the average employee is changing jobs every 3 to 4 years, certainly trying to crack that code of what do our team members want, what really motivates them and connects to them. I think that team members that feel that connection to the work that they're doing, feel that
Hmm.
there's opportunities for personal or professional growth, that's where we tend to see retention rates increase. And so, if you want to talk about cost centers and you want to talk about the impact of the bottom line, I think that there's certainly arguments to be made there. And on the flip side, I would say that purpose does have a connection to revenue centers as well. There's more and more research and data out there that talks about consumerism, that
Yeah.
that
Totally.
folks are willing to align their purchasing habits based on values, that
They really are.
organizations want to do business with other businesses that have shared values. So it's not just B2C, it's B2B as well. And so as we're looking at, I think as you take a look at that, then it's both revenue, there's underlying costs to the organization, but also it's more intrinsic than that. It's
Hmm.
how are we operating as an organization, and what is our culture going to be? What are we going to be known for
Yeah.
in our communities and beyond? And so again, I think it comes back to that flywheel that starts spinning. That purpose, it's not just business as a force for good, that we want businesses to be doing good work, or really defining their purpose or contributing back to the community, but it's also good as a force for business. And that
Yeah.
flywheel really starts spinning. And so they're sort of inextricable, and are deeply connected. Um, but I think, and I think that there's certainly those who will look at this and want to say, okay, what are the specific bottom line implications here? What's the financial ROI of our purpose? And I think that there will still be others that sit there and say, we're going to do this because this feels right, because it's what our team wants, because we know
Yes.
intrinsically that this is going to make us a better business. And neither is right or wrong.
Right.
It's just a different style of leadership and a different approach. And so, I think that there's validity to both sides of that coin.
I absolutely agree, and I think it's really important to consider that there are just different intrinsic motivators that drive people, whether they're in leadership positions, they're in frontline employee positions. If you haven't considered that there are different intrinsic motivators driving people, and you attempt to undertake purpose-driven initiatives or change initiatives in your organization, you're just not going to get the same kind of traction. It's such a critical aspect to consider. What is it that motivates and drives people? And you really need to be holistic in terms of how you attempt to engage in initiatives that are around purpose. Yes.
Absolutely. And what I'd add in there, Colt, is it's to me it really comes back to authenticity. I
Mm-hmm.
think that people can sniff out pretty quickly when something's not authentic. And
Yeah.
so I think it's really just trying to be true to yourself. Whether that's we are going to be a really financially motivated and organized company, great, then be authentic to that.
Yeah.
If it's going to be on the flip side of that and say, we really want to be, and again, these are not necessarily
Right.
one or the other. You can certainly have a financially motivated company that still cares deeply about people. But I
Yes.
think it's you just have to be truly authentic to what's really motivating you, what's motivating your team, and doing right through that.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. And what we're finding, as you were talking about, a lot of research that's coming out is that purpose-driven organizations outperform financially organizations that haven't put the same kind of focus on purpose, and that includes shareholder return,
Yeah.
like total shareholder return. So it's funny how there is this, I don't know if I want to call it ironic, but a very interesting, at least, intersect between being purpose driven and being profit driven. It turns out that if you are purpose driven, you're going to find better profits. It's just that, where is your heart out? Are you becoming purpose driven because you want the profit? Or are you becoming purpose driven because you really are driven to make an impact on the world? And I totally share your thinking that the radar people possess to detect platitude versus purpose is very highly tuned these days. And when
Totally.
that purpose is real, you are seeing things like employees are staying longer. I don't mean like staying longer in the day, although that is also happening. They're bringing better motivation. They're delivering better results in their work. Those who are responsible for product management and solution management are orienting what they're doing according to that north star that organization is being driven by, that visionary purpose, and they're delivering better innovations, and they're protecting their own organization from disruption in stronger ways. They're attracting and retaining and engaging top talent in a more powerful way. I mean, the list is long
Yeah.
for what
Yeah.
purpose is achieving for these folks. I'm wondering if in the interactions that you've had, you've seen any particularly frequent misconceptions, like myth versus fact kind of situations that surround this question of purpose in business.
Yeah, I think that you always run into a number of them, and one of them I think really leans on what we were just talking about. Is a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times if I talk to individuals about wanting purpose driven businesses in general, at times they'll say, oh well, that's nice, but I can't do that because I'm a for profit, because I have to make profit. And so
Uh-huh.
again, there exactly to what you were just saying, there
Yeah.
are there are all these other impacts that purpose is creating. And I think that there's that misconception that just because we are a for-profit, just because we have shareholders, just because we want to make money,
Yeah.
we can't have purpose as a part of our organization. And
Totally.
that's a fundamentally flawed concept, right?
Yes.
And I think for all the reasons you just enumerated, purpose is actually helping organizations become better, become
Totally.
more agile, become more creative and flexible.
Yes.
And so I tend to see that a lot is still that sticking point of not truly understanding the connectivity between purpose and profit. And
Yeah.
what we like to say is we talk a lot about stakeholder capitalism. Really getting a better understanding of who your stakeholders are, and profit can certainly be classified as a stakeholder. It just
Yeah.
happens to be one of the stakeholders.
Hmm.
So we tend to see a lot of that in conversation, still trying to get that sort of theory change across to individuals. And then I'd say the second thing is that there tends to be organizations and leaders out there that will say, well, we're already doing this, and so
Hmm.
we don't we check the box and we're good. And again, sort of back to a point I was making earlier, to me that's sort of the wrong approach for as we're talking about purpose, or as we're talking about anything within business. Is it shouldn't be, well, we do that and so we're good to go. We still,
Yeah.
organizations have customer feedback surveys, they have client feedback surveys, employee feedback surveys. We're always looking for areas of opportunity and growth, and so why should our purpose or the work we're doing, or at times as they usually gets bucketed, philanthropy, uh, why should we be satisfied with a check the box mentality there?
Yeah.
To me, it's continuing that growth, continuing that evolution. How do we get the most mileage out of the good work that we're doing? How do we get the most mileage out of our purpose, our philanthropic initiatives? All the different components that define our values. Why are we not looking to maximize that in the same way we'd be looking to maximize any other aspect of our business?
Totally. As you explain this, something that comes to my mind. I don't know if you're familiar with this, like this, the six hats exercise that business teams often do. And the idea is each person in the business meeting takes a role. I think I don't remember what color is which, but the green hat is sort of taking the emotional role. What is the feelings that are coming up? The white hat I think might be the data hat. No, the green was creative. White is data. The red one is emotional. There's the skeptic, I think, was the black one.
Hmm.
Uh, they all are playing a role in order to bring out more dimensionality to the conversation, and then to consider other factors, et cetera. You just end up with a richer result when you do this. I'm almost hearing you recommend that a hat that people consider in the room is this hat of purpose. Yes, the hat of profit is such a for granted that you don't even question it, but it's in the room. And I love the
Right.
way you're sort of personifying it as a stakeholder, and then to have that same conversation bring in this equivalent voice of purpose, I think is a very powerful idea. So we've been talking about a lot of value associated with orienting a business around purpose. We've talked about better employee retention, better innovation, better commitment and engagement, ultimately better profits and shareholder returns. So we've got a business leader who's listening to our conversation going, okay, that all sounds super valuable, Graham and Colt. How do I even get a read on where my organization is currently at, so that I could say, well, we've nailed this purpose factor, or we really have a long way to go? How do I get even the beginning reading on that?
Yeah, I think that it's really finding a way to get that initial data coming back, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and there are a variety of ways to be able to do that. Certainly, there's engagement surveys.
Yep.
That starts to tease it out. One of the things that we work with organizations on is more of a values based survey. So
Yeah.
really trying to tease out those perceptions within your team. How well are they connecting to those values? But there's also to me, and I think this maybe leans in a little bit to some metrics and data conversation that we were having a little bit earlier as well. Is
Sure.
there's a business impact assessment that's out there. It's a really robust assessment. It's offered through a third party nonprofit, B Lab. It's confidential and free, And it really allows you to take a really deep dive within the organization and also be
Yeah.
looking at structures, governance policies. What are we doing? It sort of lifts the hood on the organization itself and starts looking at the internal operations to really understand how are we aligned. And I think that assessment as well. So it is the assessment that certified B Corps take to go get certified, but it's free and available for any organization to actually take.
Remind me where we got to go for it.
So it's the business impact assessment, and it's through an organization called B Lab.
Okay.
And B Lab is the nonprofit that certifies organizations to become certified B Corps. Um,
Sure.
and the assessment that they
Ah, okay,
use,
okay.
yep. And so the assessment that they use is free and open. So even if you don't want to go get certified, to me, it's one of the most robust and well thought out uh, systems of metrics around impact and purpose
Hmm.
that's out there. And so, I think it's even just walking through that assessment at a high level to start tuning your ears to, like, what are other organizations doing? How does purpose manifest? What are we doing? What are the
Yeah.
internal operations that we're doing? Before ever trying to really activate on purpose, I think the most important thing is to sort of hold the mirror up and say, how are we doing? And it's not just, again, I think a lot of times when people think about purpose, they're thinking philanthropic giving, and it's not just the
Totally.
treasure that's going out the door, right? We need to be looking at our internal operational practices, the policies that we have, how our team is connecting to our values. And so really just getting a better baseline read
Hmm.
on where do we stand? How are we doing? Where are we prioritizing energy and effort? And so just getting a better, deeper understanding. And there's a lot of different ways to accomplish that, but I think that it's important to have that information prior to really deciding a direction, because otherwise,
Absolutely.
it's you've got to do the market research.
You do. So like whenever I have an expert on who knows how to get something done, I always like to ask about a specific action that you want to recommend. I'm wondering if you just did, if this assessment is, because I know you guys help organizations do this. So if that is really that first step that you can take, what is it that a person can do when they get back to the office on Monday after listening to this kind of thing? What's that action? Is that the action, or did you have anything else you wanted to suggest?
Yeah, I would highly recommend just taking a look through the business impact assessment.
Okay.
Again, it's a really robust process. So as you're diving in, it's going to ask a lot of detailed questions, but you can just
Yeah.
skip them. Just kind of gloss over them if it's too detailed or too much financial information. You know,
Sure.
at a high level, just understand like what it is that other organizations are even thinking about. And this is an assessment that over 100,000 organizations across the country have taken.
Hmm.
There are about 5,000 certified B Corps, so organizations that have decided to go through that certification process after
Sure.
taking the assessment. But over 100,000 other organizations that have gone through this, just to look for what metrics are they looking at,
Yeah.
what questions are they asking, because that's a lot of really insightful feedback.
Totally.
Because if you don't even know the questions to be asking, then
Yep.
you can't create the solutions to solve those questions. And so this is just an opportunity to say, I'm going to take a look at the questions. I'm going to see what they're asking about, and whether or not I want to formally write it down or not, I can
Hmm.
internalize for my own organization and understand, what is it that we're doing, and are there areas of opportunity for us to really think more holistically about our purpose, beyond the philanthropic side of things.
I would really appreciate that this is actually fairly lightweight recommended action, right? Just getting a look at it, and that you've invited everybody to kind of take a pass through it. It's really
Yeah.
about getting a read on what is there, how is purpose thought about in the context of business. What are there measures that we look at? What are the questions that get asked? And if it sounds to me like what a leader can kind of walk away from this experience having a read on is, oh, that's we ask those questions, and we look at those types of metrics, and we follow that level of thinking. Or, damn, we have not thought about that kind of stuff since day one, and we still aren't. We probably have a lot of ground to cover in terms of orienting our business around purpose. So, obviously, if they get that sense that there's a big delta, getting in touch with Seachange, powerful way, powerful next step. So I don't want to lose the opportunity to ask, what is the best way for folks to be getting in touch with you?
Yeah, you can find us and reach out to us online at seachangeltd.com. That's SEA change ltd.com. Or you could reach out to me directly at excuse me, reach out to me directly at grahampb at seachangeltd.com, and that's GRAHAMP as in Peter, B as in boy, at seachangeltd.com.
Right on. Appreciate you giving us that access. Last thing, I'm just kind of curious, man. What brought you into this space? What's the story that brought you here?
Yeah, I feel like it's as with I'm sure many people many folks in their career paths, it was sort of a windy path, but
Yeah,
um, it for me, I've always been interested in the intersection of purpose and business. My academic
sure.
background has been in that. I also have a mentor that has been a really important part of my life. We met when I was a freshman in high school, and I attended a leadership camp.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
and he himself today runs a very purpose oriented, purpose driven business here in Lincoln, Nebraska, and called Firespring.
Mm.
And so he has been a really big mentor to me in terms of really getting a deeper look into the purpose driven business space. They were an early adopter of B Corp certification and other frameworks. And we've actually gone on to co-found a nonprofit together called Do More Good Movement, that's really
Yeah,
focused on trying to help elevate and educate businesses on purpose, what
totally.
paths exist, how to connect into it. So for me, it's been a little bit of academic journey, always sort of that intellectual curiosity, but also had a really great mentor in Jay, to really help guide, and he's been wonderful to take me under his wing, and so I feel really fortunate to be here to talk about all these things and really feed my passion and fuel my fire on it.
I really appreciate you sharing that. I have such a huge respect for the role that a mentor mentee relationship can play for people, for individuals, and of course for businesses. And at the same time, I I always experience a simultaneous sadness, a lament that it's not more common that in our culture, we have this sense that everybody has to stand up as their own island and go read the books and become a superstar.
Yeah,
The value of mentor mentee relationships, and as I talk about with Sarah Armstrong, this personal board of directors, is just so hard to overstate. I'm stoked that you were able to share that it's been a major influence for you in your life. I hope that helps to kind of move the thinking along, because it's something that our culture has. I don't know. I think we've sort of deviated.
yeah. Well, and I think we're talking so much about purpose, and I think that another actionable takeaway for leaders out there that are listening
Yeah.
is to find somebody to mentor.
Wow. Great.
To be that person that will help extend a hand and teach and educate and empower and inspire. And it's certainly, I feel fortunate that there have been a lot of mentors in my life, and Jay being a significant and important one for me. And so if you're out there and in a leadership position, what opportunities exist for you to be able to extend that hand and impart and share some knowledge as well.
Very powerful. So what we're going to do, we're going to include the link to the assessment you were talking about. I want people to have access to that, even though I think you gave us enough information to Google it anytime we want. I'm actually inclined to. I'm going to put actually a link of an episode to Elevated AF, the podcast, which is specifically about mentor-mentee relationships. So if people are interested in what it takes to approach somebody, or what it takes to approach a mentor, or what it takes to bring yourself as a mentor to another person, I think that could be very informative. Man, we could talk for a long time. There was so many threads I just wanted to continue to unpack, but this has been a really valuable glimpse into purpose, the way that you're seeing it, the work that you're doing with Seachange. I'm so stoked with the alignment and synergy between your work and the work that I'm doing. Really thrilled I get to spend time with you in this conversation, man. Thank you so much for being a part of this.
Yeah, and thank you, Colt. Again, it's really an honor to be able to have this conversation, to share this space together, and I'm an admirer of all the work that you're doing at Scrappy to continue to help organizations build on their purpose and advance their purpose. So, thank you.